Oh my gosh, the executive meeting that just took place here in the studio was so powerful. I just loved it. Chuck Malamut is here, ladies and gentlemen. He is our official financial advisor, the exclusive financial advisor to the Hurley in the Morning program. Chuck leads his group, the Malamut team, at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office. You can reach them for all of your financial planning needs at 609-383-2010. The following program segment is presented by Chuck. Chuck is a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on this broadcast are those of Chuck, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of the broadcast. They are subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. This presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member SIPC. Mr. Malamut, top of the morning to you, my good man.
Good morning, Harry.
How are you? That was a fun meeting we had.
Yeah, quite an hour to follow for sure. I mean, you had the three executives in here, and I just happened to
four.
Happened to watch.
You're Mr. Big.
Before we get into what I sent you last night to review, I found it rather interesting. The last hour in particular, there were a number of items. One of which is the firing of the teacher of the Eisenstein, which is just absolutely god awful.
It's terrible.
But hopefully he will get his job back, and deservedly so. And I think at the end of the day, they're going to probably write him a pretty big check.
That's what I say.
But Kirk, and one of your discussions was around the state of Texas.
Yes.
And we have had this discussion any of a number of times about buying municipal bonds and how to buy them and where to buy them from. And, from a fiscal perspective and budgetary process, the state of Texas by far is one of the best financially sound states that are out there. And when we are looking to buy municipals for our clients, we oftentimes buy from the state of Texas. They have, in fact, you have a number of different rating agencies, and then you have a number of different insurance carriers. MBIA, AMBAC, Berkshire Hathaway, has a division. The state of Texas has they're basically self-insured. It's referred to as PSF. And Harry, by far, the quality of the paper there is, light years in front of the state that we reside in. And I just find that remarkable that two states can be so different with respect to their financial affairs. And when you buy a municipal bond, as a New Jersey state resident, you're supposed to pay state income tax on income earned outside of the state. And that would be, from a certificate of deposit, that would be from a non-New Jersey issued municipal. But oftentimes, we go out of state because of the quality.
What's ironic about you bringing up Texas, for those who don't know, the Texas legislature meets basically a handful of times. They're truly a part-time legislature. They get all their work done. They get it done in a very short period of time, and that takes a lot of the politics. And I know that this program, we take the politics out during Chuck's time with us each week because we should, and it's the right thing to do, and we talk financial matters. But now that Chuck brings up Texas, they have excellent employment. They have a wonderful surplus. They meet very few days. And I have a theory, Chuck, the more that the government meets, the worse the government is. And I don't think it's an accident that they meet so infrequently, and yet they deliver such excellent results that you would make a pronouncement that it's a solid investment.
Yeah, and Harry, you think about it, you go back a couple decades ago, one of their primary focus, and still remains, is the energy sector and the oil patch. But they've been able to diversify away from that. And there's a lot of other industries in the state of Texas. And I constantly, as I drive around South Jersey, and particularly the Atlantic County area, Harry, I am just miffed that we have been sort of in a standstill type environment for the last, I'll call it 20 plus years.
It's
it even
amazing.
goes back further than that.
And we're looking again. I heard that GDP is looking again to not really be beyond 2%.
Well, yeah, but
I know what you're saying.
Yeah,
It's two different conversations.
GDP marginally higher, but I guess the point that I was trying to make is that you've had these boom and bust cycles in the energy sector, and we are now living through one of the busts, and it is now getting a little bit better. But when you look at the state of Texas, what they've been able to do is sort of recreate themselves, and
to their credit,
and unfortunately here in South Jersey in particular, we have not been able to do that. And that's why I think, Harry, it's one of the reasons we are faced with all the issues that we currently have. I mean, your interview last week, interviews, I should say, I think it was on Thursday.
Correct.
Were riveting. I mean, I love you like a brother.
Thank you.
But
Ditto, back to you.
For me to sit in my car and wait for you to finish your interview with the governor, I think that says
compliment.
That says a lot on
41
itself.
minutes.
It was and I'm glad he got his message out.
I did write a few excuse notes that day to people that were late. I merely wrote to their bosses that they were listening
you didn't
to
write
my
one,
interview
you didn't write
with
one to my
governor.
boss.
I would have done it if it was necessary.
But I
John
find,
said it was okay.
I mean, I find it remarkable, and I know that we're not going to talk. We don't like to talk politics, but what we are living through right now, it's awful.
And Chuck, I don't think it's politics when on or about April 8th, and we're talking, like 10 days from now, that the city of Atlantic City will run out of money. Literally, I've been using the expression, not have fare to take a jitney ride. That's not politics. That's a financial
that's for
tsunami.
Real. Yeah. So, I mean, hopefully, April 8th is right around the corner. So
you're a very excellent problem solver. I've known that since you were my boss, and you're very good at looking at something and figuring a way to correct if there's a problem or come up with solutions and things. If the governor stands pat that not a single word can change, if the speaker won't even allow it to be posted, the city is going to be left to run out of money. And really, I don't think it should be held against them because they're really a hostage at this point because they can't control Vincent Prieto, that he's not going to post a bill. Why? If you're going to help them, but don't hold them accountable for what Vincent Prieto's doing. I think the wrong people are getting the blame here.
Well, the city of Atlantic City certainly has skin in the game, and they are getting blamed for.
They don't want to give up control.
And look,
which I can understand that
in anybody's position, you don't like to give up control, but unfortunately, I think the powers that be have to clearly recognize that. I think, as you said, you don't have enough money to take a jitney ride, or you're broke as a joke. You might not have a choice. I strongly disagree with Prieto holding this up.
Of course, if he didn't hold it up, though, then it is that pretty strong arm takeover, though.
Well, Harry, look.
But they have no money.
Yeah, the problem is that you can't buy a house without a down payment.
Right.
All right. You could find a $5 million home and absolutely love it, but
cut out the pictures, have a scrapbook.
But if you don't have that 20%, you're not going to make that down payment. You're not going to qualify for a mortgage, and
Chuck, there are so many things, and again, none of this is political; it's all financial. And the way we're having this conversation is all financial. They weren't able to make pension contributions last year. It's another $30 million. That's coming due. $160 to $170 million to Borgata. Judge Mendez ordered the $62.5 million to be paid. So the city's not able to pay it. They've been paying the interest. And then now Borgata, Governor Christie calls it self-help program. They're not making their quarterly payments, their tax payments. That's over $7 million, and they're not going to make it again. So they're really, Atlantic City has no good options. Mayor Guardian, I think, in fairness to him, has made substantial cuts. They did save over $25 million last year. They have reduced the number of positions. The starting salary for a police officer is now $45,000 and not $58,000. There are something like 12 or more steps to get to top pay. Years ago, it used to be 3 years and you were at top pay. Then it went to 7. Then it went to 10. Now it might be 12 or 15. I mean, the fire department, we're having the secretary of the Professional Firefighters of Atlantic City, their local, I'm off the top of my head, I want to say 198. John Varallo will be here tomorrow morning at 7:35, and they're going to talk about concessions they've made, givebacks, and money that they have helped save. The problem with all this is a lot of these honest, hardworking public servants and public safety servants, they gave back a lot with the promise that this, means that we go from here with this, knowing that this is your employment package. But now all of a sudden, all those givebacks take place, and a takeover could happen, and it could be totally blown up. So it is really it's Stressville, USA right now in Atlantic City.
And Harry, looking at the future of the town, I think it's very, very important that a resolution, and again, this is easy for us to say, that satisfies all parties. So I don't think at the end,
I don't think that's achievable.
Yeah, I think at the end there's going to be a lot of very unhappy people. But
see, here's the thing, though, Chuck. If you were going to take something over, Chuck, if you agreed to go back into operations or something, you would have. I know you, and you know me. We would have to be guaranteed that we have control. I mean, you can't be told you're the vice president of hotel operations, but you have no authority. You have a business card because, for example, I understand where Governor Christie's coming from. He doesn't want to take the state over if you can't open up the collective bargaining agreements because there's millions and millions of dollars that you would absolutely have no control over. So that's why he's insistent on total financial and operational control. This is the challenge. And, of course, the city rejects that. You can understand it from their standpoint because they don't want this county Camden model that, by the way, isn't very good. Just putting that out there. That is not the panacea. I mean, this is a very excellent police department and an excellent fire department that they'd be messing with. So I don't think there's any solution here that's going to make everybody happy. If Prieto comes off his position and he allows the bill to be posted, the votes are there, and the takeover would happen, and the state would have up to 5 years of total financial and total operational control of Atlantic City. Short of that, the governor isn't going to sign it. So this is one of those things where you cannot make everyone happy. A deal like this would mean everybody would be unhappy.
Harry, the problem that I think all of us recognize is not so much where we are today, and we kind of talked about this offline. Is selling the city, down the road, 5, 7, 10 years. And I remember as growing up, back in the mid '60s, the '64 convention that was just again devastated Atlantic City. My father and uncle, just so terribly upset because a lot of the local hoteliers worked very, very hard, under very, very difficult conditions to try to maintain their properties. And what happened was, the town itself, had this stigma,
got painted with a broad brush
that you could never overcome.
The media crushed Atlantic City.
Forget the advent of air travel, and where it was a lot easier to go and fly. Back in the '60s. Now, think about it today. You got a whole different set of circumstances, but some of them are somewhat the same. I mean, what it gets down to is, you kind of look from an investor's perspective. All right, I'm going to buy property in Atlantic City. Kudos to Bart Blatstein. I mean, buys the pier.
He's able to get past all the noise and see opportunity.
Buys the show,
but not everybody can do that.
Buys the showboat.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not quite certain. I haven't heard anything that's going to happen to that property, but he obviously did a very, very good job in Philadelphia, and he can in fact that be recreated here. I mean, I think there's a lot of really good things that will be happening. Stockton. In the city of Atlantic City.
Stockton
So
University is going to be incredible.
And so it's a matter of Texas A&M, College Station.
College Town.
Can you recreate that environment in this town?
And they're going to be paying a pilot. They'll be paying payment in lieu of taxes.
Can Atlantic City kind of see through? Harry, I think it's a short, hopefully just a short-term problem with some really, really, hopefully positive long-term solutions.
Let's get our break in. It's 20 minutes past the hour. Chuck Malamut, the official financial advisor to the Hurley in the Morning program. When we come back, Chuck is going to give you his market update. He'll talk about the U.S. economy. He'll talk about the downside risks of the market. He'll talk about oil prices in the labor market. We've all been watching. It was like 140 low. It's now like 179.9 for a regular gallon of gasoline. Things have definitely changed quite a bit in just a few weeks in terms of gasoline prices, which certainly has correlation to the oil prices. And just one comment as we feather into the break. Jim Wood, who does a terrific job leading the Meet AC group. That's, for those who don't know, that's the equivalent of the Convention and Visitors Authority in other jurisdictions. He put out an extraordinary communication that I complimented. I thought it was spot on, where they want to make it clear around the country that Atlantic City is open for business. Because if all you hear, 4-step downgrades on bonds, municipal Atlantic City bonds are beyond junk and worse than ever, 4 lower than when they were already terrible steps, and that you can't come to Atlantic City because they have no money, and you can't invest in Atlantic City because where's your money going to go with this broke town? Jim Wood put out a very sober assessment of Atlantic City being open for business. And the shame of it is, think about this, Miss America 2-year contract extension, multiple years, millions of dollars worth of A-list concerts guaranteed for years to come on the beach in Atlantic City. Other great announcements that are happening, and yet all the media has an appetite for is that the city's broke is a joke and it's a game of chicken and all this insanity that's going on. It's a shame.
At the Jersey Shore on 1450 AM. Across all of South Jersey at 104.9 FM, HD2. And everywhere on your cell phone at WPG1450.com. This is Hurley in the Morning on WPG Talk Radio 1450.
Welcome back. It's Hurley in the Morning with Chuck Malamut, all about your financial matters. Chuck, the time is yours, my good man. Oh, just a quick programming note. The last 10 minutes of the hour, we did this last year. Very excited to help my colleague from Town Square Media, Georgia. Only one name. She's very famous. When you can go by one name, Cher, Sting, Prince, or he's a symbol now, and they say the artist formerly known as Prince. It's longer. But Georgia, daily on-air personality from Cat Country 107.3. She's once again raising funds for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We made a contribution last year. We're going to surprise Georgia and make another contribution today. I have the check. Chuck, would you testify under oath that I do? You don't have to say the amount, but I do have a check for Georgia right there, correct?
Yes, Harry.
Yes, I do.
You have a check.
Yes.
Look at that. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a very generous.
I appreciate that.
It's a generous check. And Georgia is running in the St. Jude Rock and Roll Half Marathon in Nashville, Tennessee on Saturday, April 30th. And she'll be in studio with us at 10 minutes before the top of the hour to talk about her fundraising effort. Chuck, market update. Time is yours.
So Harry, it's very interesting because if you remember, as we got into the beginning of this year and through basically February and into March, the volatility was just, over the top. So now volatility has subsided and the market is trading for the most part in a pretty tight range as we are sitting here anxiously waiting for earnings to begin to be announced, which will be, forthcoming in the next week. So last week was the first time in that the major indices were actually down for the week. We had a 5-week winning streak. The S&P was down, fractionally less than 1%. And it looks as if, Harry, you think about everything that has happened overseas, Brussels, Pakistan, the hijacking of a jet just earlier this morning.
It was unusual to hear an old-fashioned hijacking the way it used to be.
Exactly.
That's what people did. They didn't want to hurt anybody. They wanted to go from not where you were going, but this guy wanted to go to Istanbul. They didn't have enough fuel, so he wound up landing in Cyprus. He let almost everybody go, kept a few because he's trying to negotiate his position. Didn't hurt anyone. Very unusual to hear an old-fashioned hijacking.
Yeah, and what's interesting, Harry, is that you think back, and initially when you see these events unfold, that you're looking at the markets, especially if the markets are trading, that you would look for that initial drop and then maybe somewhat of a follow through to the upside. But it's not happening for the most part.
Chuck, I'm convinced that what you and I have talked about on your program many times over the recent years, because the world has changed so much, events that used to affect markets, the markets just shrug it off now.
Yeah, so
is that a fair comment?
I think it's a very fair comment, Harry. Because
it's sad that it's so common now that it has no effect.
Well, they have limited market impact. We'll call it. I mean, so it's not that it's going to go away. So
But even like the Brussels terrorist attack, where Americans did die, that was minimal.
It was very, very minimal
in terms of financial impact.
And I think it goes back to the events that unfolded in Paris not too long ago. I mean, it seems like it's a distant memory.
I know.
For all of us, but certainly here living in the U.S. is different than living, in Paris for sure. But so the markets, took their steps last week from the Fed officials, and it looks as if we're going to take a little bit of a pause here in the markets as we await earnings, as I mentioned to you a few minutes ago. So it shouldn't come to anyone's surprise that that investors, for the most part, there's a fair amount of skepticism out there, and it's a result, Harry, of the numerous ups and downs that we have seen within the market. And you think about we have traveled this highway from the beginning of January, and it's been very, very difficult, and we've gone absolutely nowhere. I mean, you think about it. You
always say, Chuck, if you could dispassionately not get caught up in the buzzsaw activity of a few weeks or something, if you waited until the end, there'd be nothing to get upset about.
Yeah, and Harry, it looks as if now that some of the reports that we're getting, particularly the ISM Manufacturing Index, it's starting to improve. And the economic, backdrop that we live with every day is providing some more indicators that the bullish argument that's out there could very well we could very well get there.
Chuck, let's get our bottom of the hour break in. If there's more on the market update, Chuck will finish it on the other side of the break. He'll get into the U.S. economy, downside risks of the market, oil prices, and the labor market, and anything else that Chuck wants to share in one power segment straight ahead. Cat Country 107.3 is Georgia dropping by in about 20 minutes, a little less than 20 minutes, and you're listening to Chuck Malamut. This is Chuck's weekly regular program that takes place on Tuesdays in most of the 8 o'clock hour, and Chuck leads his group. He's the managing director of the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office, 609-383-2010, to reach Chuck and his team for all of your financial matters. And you'll learn why Chuck and his team, they've perfected their concept of total asset management coupled with the all-important asset allocation. You can trust Chuck. I promise you that. Tell him I sent you. Harbor Pines Golf Club, their season opener, celebrating 20 years of excellence. Harbor Pines Golf Club, owned by the legendary Gerwicks family, Saturday, April 9th, 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. What an incredible day. What a wonderful day to be a part of this, because there's so many diverse activities and benefits by participating on this day. Let me give you a few. Club demo, custom fitting with Doctor of Golf, featuring Ping, Callaway, Cobra, Wilson, and more. Regripping and repair assessment on hand. Free practice range all day, which is wonderful for your game and for your wallet. Free video swing analysis from the Shore Swing Golf Academy. Grill room and deck open for breakfast, lunch, dinner with 40% off all menu items. Great savings. Pro Shop merchandise sale. Mrs. Gerwicks does a fabulous job in the Pro Shop. You'll love the selections and items are for sale on this day, Saturday, April 9th at Harbor Pines Golf Club. 4 p.m., Masters Moving Day Party with free light bites, drink specials, and live entertainment. Golf anytime, only $59 for more information or to reserve. Dial 609-927-0006. They're on the World Wide Web at harborpines.com, physically located at 500 St. Andrews Drive in Egg Harbor Township. And the Harbor Pines Golf Club is the exclusive home of the 9th annual Hurley in the Morning Golf Open set for Friday, June 17th.
Hi, it's Glenn Beck, and I'm coming up at 10 this morning, then Sean Hannity at 3. Now, more Hurley in the Morning on WPG, Talk Radio 1450.
Thank you, Selman. Thank you, Glenn Beck. And let's pivot from the market update that Chuck just did to the U.S. economy. Chuck Malamut?
So, Harry, as we got to the break, we talked about ISM manufacturing data, and it has improved for the last 2 months. We expect March's numbers to be more productive and improve as well. So what is happening here, the rally that we've seen with commodity prices, including oil, the decline in the value of the dollar. I mean, I know that you are, a dollar king, so to speak, but
I'm bullish on the American dollar.
The decline of the dollar has actually been helpful for equities, because you think about all the multinationals that are out there that, where we do a lot of business overseas, a declining dollar is actually helpful for those particular companies. So you've talked about GDP as we were at the top of the hour, but what has happened here is that the economy looks now it's benefiting from all the stimulus that was put in at the end of, as we had 2013, 2014.
Chuck, financial question, not a political one. Why for over 7 years, when even during the Great Depression, for multiple years during the Great Depression, we were growing above 3%? Why are we only growing at like 1 or 2%?
Well, Harry, I don't think that's very hard to figure out. I mean, you look at what has transpired a few hundred miles south of here, and the rules, the regs, the ongoing, they are your new best friend, and it becomes very, very challenging for businesses, to remain profitable. So that's.
And Chuck, we always respect your time to try to get you out by 8:45. But as you know, today we actually have a guest. So at about 8:44 and 30 seconds, I have to sign off to get ready for Georgia. Downside risks of the market.
Yeah, so they remain. They're still out there, but they seem to be easing somewhat. Harry, the Fed's recent indication is going to slow its pace with respect to rate increases. It looks like there probably will be, two rate increases over the course of the year. Inflation looks to be increasing, which is good. Still remains below the Fed's 2% target level, so it gives the Fed some flexibility to move. As I mentioned to you, the softer dollar has taken some risk out of the economy, and financial markets, are benefiting now by having these stabilized commodity prices. And believe it or not, if I asked your listeners, what are the best performing markets to date, and they are emerging markets and now high yield. Wow. Quite different than where we were in the beginning of the year for sure. So, geopolitical risks are still out there. I think we have to be concerned about that, Harry. But it's a fact of life, and they continue to have the potential to disrupt economic growth in the financial markets.
2 minutes. Oil prices in the labor market.
So we just basically the labor market seems to be firming. The wage increases are out there, so that should be good for the economy. But the near term market outlook, Harry, seems sort of tentative. I mean, you had this big move in a relatively short period of time. So we need to be a little cautious as to where we're going. I think for sure, corporate earnings, we might have hit the trough here in this quarter, and then they're going to improve from there. So I'm thinking that if the earnings are better than expectations, that's obviously going to bode well for the market.
Do you think this is another one of these top line, bottom line type deals with the earnings?
Yeah, Terry, I think it's going to continue. I mean, you see it in these, you have most companies are on that, traditional cycle of reporting. First quarter gets reported in the beginning of April from the end of March. There are a few companies with off cycles, and you see those reports coming now, and the same is true of what is happening in traditional reporting, missing slightly on the top line, making or beating slightly on the bottom line,
where they have some control in terms of operating costs.
But you can only squeeze so much.
Yep.
Now, what we've seen happen of late, M&A, mergers and acquisitions, are back. Stock buybacks, you're in that quiet period now, so companies can't really say what they're going to do. But there still is a lot of cash, sitting on the balance sheets of all these companies.
Tour de force as always, Chuck. Great job.
Harry, thanks for having me. We will see you again next week.
Look forward to it. You've been listening to Chuck Malamut every Tuesday morning. Tell a friend at 8:05. I believe the best financial matters type issues, listenable dialogue that you will hear anywhere in the metro market. Chuck is now in his 26th year with us doing the program, and he has a number of more years in the financial services business. Chuck leads the Malamut Group at Morgan Stanley's Northfield office. To reach Chuck and his team, call 609-383-2010. The following program that you just listened to is presented by Chuck, a financial advisor at Morgan Stanley. The information, views, and opinions expressed on the program are those of Chuck, do not necessarily reflect those of Morgan Stanley or its affiliates. They are current as of the date of this broadcast, subject to change without notice. Neither the information provided nor any opinion expressed herein constitutes a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security. The presentation is for informational purposes only. Morgan Stanley, Smith Barney, member SIPC. And it is 45 minutes past the hour. We'll be back with my Town Square Media colleague, Georgia from Cat Country, and her fundraising prowess, as she's doing a great thing for St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. We'll talk about it next.